90% of high performers in any job have high emotional intelligence. So it doesn't matter what job. They say IQ is kind of fixed by a certain age, or personalities are kind of set by a certain age. Emotional intelligence can be improved. Being genuine and loving and seeing what can I do to help that person.
Well, welcome back to another episode of BeyondU. Today's conversation, we are joining with Sandy Lynn, Professor Sandy Lynn. She works here at Oklahoma Wesleyan, and the conversation that we're going to have today is all about emotional intelligence. So what is it? Why is it important? And if you don't have it, can you get it? And so, Sandy, we're so grateful that you would join us today. Sandy comes to us not only as a professor here at Oklahoma Wesleyan, but she's a wife, a mom, a dog mom even, Panda. We love Panda around here at OKWU. Sandy, tell us a little bit, how did you get to Oklahoma Wesleyan?
Well, probably not your typical story. So my husband's a pastor, so I've done ministry with him forever, it seems like. And I chose to stay home and home educate my children, our children. So anyway, through that, I met the Weaver family. And one time in conversation, probably 10 years ago, I said something about, I love Oklahoma Wesleyan. And he said, come teach for us. And I said, oh, I don't have a master's. I don't have a doctorate. And he said, you could get it. And so that kind of stuck back in the back of my head. It was stuck with me. And so my youngest daughter was getting ready to graduate high school. At that time, she was a freshman in high school. And I thought, okay, Lord, what is next for me? And I remembered that conversation. And I looked into it, decided to get a master's degree from OKWU. So I got a master's in leadership from Oklahoma Wesleyan, and hoped that I could be an adjunct, right? That's what I was originally thinking. And long story short, I actually started my journey with OKWU as an academic advisor with the GPS program, the adult online program and in-person program. So that was my first job, and then a position came open, and just in further conversation with Dr. Weaver, and I had since, because I love learning, I got a second master's degree in communication.
Okay.
So there was perfect opportunity for me to step in and teach some classes here at Oklahoma Wesleyan.
Oh, that's awesome. And so the classes that you do teach are emotional intelligence classes. And so I think it makes sense for the conversation for not only those of us right here, but even our listeners. What is emotional intelligence? Like, how would you define that?
There's different maybe models or theories out there. In general, it's your ability to recognize your own emotions, right? And to understand and how it impacts your behavior. With that, there's an element of seeing other people, recognizing emotions, reading other people.
Right. So it's not just aware of self, but it's others aware, and it's kind of in conjunction at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm curious, how do you teach 18 to 22-year-olds that art? Because it really is an art. Emotional intelligence, to an extent, is this. Some of them probably come by a little bit more naturally than others. But how do you teach this art of becoming not only self-aware but others aware?
We just start with a conversation. Like, what is it? We use a couple different textbooks, have them read it, have them talk. The one, I guess, theory model of emotional intelligence that I start with, it's very simple. It's an internal, looking inward.
Right.
That's self-awareness, self-management. So that's where we start with ourselves, right? And then the other components are social awareness and relationship management.
Yeah.
So we go through those step by step and just have conversations about it. We do lots of exercises with assessments, and we talk about strengths, their strengths finders, all of those kinds of things, and how you show up. And you have to know yourself before you can pick up on others.
That's a conversation we have a lot, Sandy, is just we use the term self-awareness and emotional intelligence almost interchangeably. Are they different? I mean, are they interchangeable? Because for you, it sounds it's kind of a more of a two-step process of knowing yourself and then becoming more relationally aware. But what's the difference between being self-aware and emotionally intelligent, if any?
Self-awareness is the foundation
Okay.
of emotional intelligence. You have to know your strengths and weaknesses. You have to know what your emotions. There's a statistic out there that only 36% of people actually can identify what they're feeling, and then recognizing the impact on your behavior. Right? You have a bad day at home, or you have a bad day at work. You come home and say something rude, or say something short. You're not recognizing your emotions and how that's impacting your behavior. So self-awareness is the foundation. It's one piece of the puzzle.
Okay. So emotional intelligence then is kind of a broader picture of self-awareness as a component, but there's other things that are involved in becoming emotionally intelligent.
Right,
Okay.
right. And we start, it's easy to start with ourselves, right?
Right.
I mean, that's how we start. So
For most of us.
to get 18 to 22-year-olds or whatever, I mean, at least you can't control other people, you can control you. So this is how we start that conversation.
You mentioned some of the work we do here at OKWU with the time and energy, and again, just here continuing compliments on your class and what you have to offer students. So you walk students through Strengths Finder and emotional intelligence. So you've been here long enough. What difference does it make for students who graduate? In other words, for students who graduate with a level of emotional intelligence, how does that set them apart as they enter the business world or the workforce? What difference does it make for them?
To simplify it, I call emotional intelligence people skills, right? And in that whole aspect of being able to communicate well, to, again, not only recognize your own stuff and your emotions and manage yourself, but to be able to pick up on other people, on what's going on, how to read the room. We have 2 emotional intelligence courses at OKWU. I'm very thankful to be able to teach all freshmen in the School of Business, and that is very much about the transition to college, right? We start applying, and our discussion is here now. The upper division emotional intelligence course, the discussion is outside of our walls at OKWU. Like, what does this look like in the workplace? What does this look like? I mean, of course, there's always personal application, and you can apply it to their situations now. But we really focus on what does this look like outside of our walls at OKWU.
Well, and I think about emotional intelligence, and obviously you teach in the School of Business here, but it's safe to assume that this applies beyond just the business marketplace. So talk to us a little bit about, because here at OKWU, we have a whole variety of majors and disciplines that students are studying for, different career paths. Talk to us just a little bit about, like, if a student isn't in the School of Business taking your upper divisional course, like, how might emotional intelligence set them up for a lifetime of success in whatever field that God might be calling them to?
Right. The statistics show that 90% of high performers in any job have high emotional intelligence. So it doesn't matter what job. I mean, my background was ministry, and then in the home education environment, right, in leadership in that. But it doesn't matter. It's beyond. It's part of the psychology degree plan as well. They take that, but you don't have to be a psych major or a business major for this to apply. What I love about Oklahoma Wesleyan is that we can also bring in the biblical application of it. I start at the very, the basics that we look in, with the internal, the inward look, with the self-awareness, self-management. Then we look out, but we look up. I mean, what are the 2 greatest commandments? To love God and love others. Yeah. How can we love others? And I believe with all of my heart that we can love others through emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So kind of tagging into the 2 greatest commandments being love God, love others. And this might be a little bit off script for us today, but how does Jesus exemplify for us this idea of emotional intelligence as we look at his life and his ministry throughout the Gospels? How does he set this example of what emotional intelligence looks like?
And we talk about that in class
Yeah.
sometime. We do. Like how did, Jesus exemplify this?
Yeah.
He showed compassion. He had empathy. He loved people. He was authentic. He knew what he could do. He got angry,
Yeah.
right? But we always talk, one of the things we say with emotions and recognizing, it kind of depends on what you do, how that impacts your behavior. You recognize an emotion, if you have anger, whatever. But, and what does the Bible say? Be angry and sin not, about things. So, we do look at Scripture.
Yeah.
We do look in Proverbs, like
Right.
so much of
Right.
Proverbs is about managing yourself and things. So I love being able to explore that aspect. Yeah, it's great.
Well, and we have, I think, even in the example of the disciples, people that didn't always get that emotional intelligence, right? But Jesus, being the great teacher that he was, not only demonstrated it through his words, but his actions. And I love that we today even can look not only in Scripture for an example, but we can also look at other resources for what emotional intelligence looks like. Talk to us a little bit about what are some of the resources that you tend to leverage as you're teaching others. What is emotional intelligence? How does it intersect every facet of their life? What are some go-to resources for you?
Resources as in books.
Yeah.
There's we have multiple popular textbooks on emotional intelligence. It's been around for a while. Daniel Goleman is kind of considered the father of emotional intelligence. He was a psychologist and wrote an article, basically why it's more important than IQ. EQ, emotional quotient, right? That's where the Q comes in, is more important than IQ. That's what he said, and it gained popularity from that point. So we research. There's a ton of articles, about why is it important in the workplace, not just in business, right?
Yeah.
In the medical field, in education, definitely in ministry. So I have students look up articles and lots of things like that.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of just piggybacking that conversation for a minute. I mean, so if I'm listening to this podcast, Sandy, I maybe, and I ask myself this question sometimes. I don't know if you do too. But am I emotionally intelligent? Am I aware? So, what are some things that you would tell people to look for that indicate their level of emotional intelligence? Does that make sense?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. There are various assessments that you can take, right? There's free ones, there's paid ones, that can give you a score, a level. I believe even as part of the master's program here, they have you take an EQ test and work through, and what does that look like? Reading the description of things you can, if you don't want to pay for or even take some of the free assessments, you can, kind of place yourself on the scales of the different areas.
So, if I'm interested in this, I mean, is emotional intelligence, I mean, can we develop it over time? Is it something that we're born with, or can we kind of learn to become more emotionally intelligent? Talk to us just a little bit about what that process would look like.
Right, great question. You absolutely can improve emotional intelligence. It's one of those things. They say IQ is kind of fixed by a certain age, or personalities are kind of set by a certain age. Emotional intelligence can be improved. And that's what I tell our students. That's what I tell anybody I talk to about. Guess what? If you may not have a lot of self-control, I mean, it's one of the questions I ask in class. Like, how many of you, like, when you get angry, or whatever, or you've seen someone or a friend, right? If you can improve that aspect of your life and then pick up on others. When going back to the kind of the model with self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management, I ask the question to our students, like, how can you tell what the person sitting next to you is going through? Or how do you, so we talk about body language and listening and reading between the lines, if they say something, but their, body language says something differently, or something different. But I tell them they have to look up, in our day and age that a lot of us are in our phones often, the importance of looking up and being intentional and, engaging with the people around us. But it can be improved. Sometimes it just takes work.
For sure. No, go ahead.
Well, I just was gonna, I mean, so part of this is, it seems like as a society right now, that we are in large part a cycle of reactivity, right? That we gauge our own emotional response based on what's happening to us in the moment, right? Whether that's political or whether that's family relationships or whatever that may be. So what would you say to somebody who may find themselves wondering about this, or they find themselves just in a cycle of reacting to the next thing and not really thinking through, okay, what am I bringing into this position? What advice would you give to them to be able to kind of take the first steps in becoming a little bit more self-aware and emotionally intelligent, so they're not just reacting to whatever's coming at them in the moment?
Right. One of the things we talk about is like basically take your emotional temperature, right? It's, just an expression, but kind of, it is part of self-awareness. Like understand, okay, did whatever this person say, did that bother me? Did it trigger me? Did it bring back a memory or whatever, something? How am I going to react? Because being self-aware and recognizing emotions and how that's going to impact what you do or what you say. Emotions are contagious. They talk about that. Emotions are contagious. That you can help diffuse a situation if things are getting heated, if by being the calm person in the room, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
How would you speak to the leader that maybe they're in the marketplace leading a team, or maybe they're even in a similar position as yours in the classroom leading students? How would you speak to a leader that's wanting to help cultivate a culture of emotional intelligence, maybe in a place that might be lacking that? Like, what are some practical tips and tools that you would give to the leader as far as speaking into the lives of others?
Be genuine and honestly care about your people. Right? That's what, when I tie emotional intelligence to scripture, right? And loving others, right? Loving other people. So absolutely being genuine, knowing who you are and knowing what you do well and what you don't do well. And then it's appreciating the people around you. What I love, even of my colleagues and my team, I lead by relationships and strengths, right? That's everything in me. And strategic is one of my lower strengths, strategic thinking and planning. That celebrating people on your team who have things that you don't, and recognizing and appreciating other people. Being genuine. That's the thing, is being genuine.
So I'll air out a little bit of myself here. Like in my Strengths Finder top 5, strategic sits uniquely at the top. And so what do you do with someone that might be saying, well, my gift set or my strengths might not speak of a lot of emotional intelligence? How do I implement that as a leader, not just as a regular human being, but as a leader, someone that might have to work a little bit harder at it? Are there any tips or tricks of the trade that you could impart beyond what you've already shared with us?
Well, there is a book by Travis Bradberry. I believe it's called Emotional Intelligence Habits or something like that. Literally, it's lists, lists of things you can do, right? There are ways to improve. One thing, when I challenge our students or anybody that about being genuine and loving and seeing what can I do to help that person, right? And recognizing that. But, there are all kinds of resources and helps out there.
This is good news for
I
people like me.
I think there's so much to be said sometimes. We were talking about this the other day. Just when you see a team or a family or a group or organization, when they can move from a place where their differences are a source of frustration to a place of appreciation, you can find emotional intelligence at work, right?
Absolutely.
Because you may lead with relationships, Torrey may lead with more thinking skills. It's not right or wrong, right? But when we understand, I know what I bring to the table, but I am grateful for what you bring to the table, and let's work as a team.
Right.
That there's a level of appreciation that's fostered, and you can kind of get somewhere as a team or an organization there.
Absolutely. And even in dealing with conflict, I mean, one of the classes I teach is conflict management. And today I said, okay, sorry, not sorry. We can't discuss conflict management without emotional intelligence, right? You have to understand how emotions play a part of that. But working, how conflict can be good, right? You can work together towards a goal. I want this, you want this. We figure out that, that we can work together. But part of that is emotional intelligence. And when you see a healthy team, they are appreciating and valuing what everybody brings to the table.
Yeah. Leadership is not one size fits all, right?
Definitely
There are
not.
families or organizations or anything like that. That's
Right.
part of it. It's like a giant puzzle of figuring out where the different pieces go. For you and your work with students and otherwise, what are some of the biggest barriers that you see that make it difficult for people to gain or acquire emotional intelligence?
They don't look up. That's one of the biggest things. Everybody's got their face in their phone. Yeah. They don't look up. I said, how would you know, someone next to you is having a bad day if you don't ever notice them if they're having a good day? Right. That would definitely be one of the barriers of just not paying attention. The other, and I would say, is a lack of self-awareness, or tying in lack of confidence. I always challenge them to, talk to other people, right? Just even people you don't know. We're not talking stranger danger. We're talking to, your fellow OKWU, students around, your friends or people that aren't friends yet. And sometime that I've asked the question, would you talk to them? It's you and one other person in a room. And they said, it depends on their vibe. That's what, and I said, okay, what, describe vibe.
Right.
And they're like, whether they look open to having a conversation or, and so that's so much about understanding body language. What vibe are you putting out, off, do you look approachable? And so that's even part of it. It might not sound directly related to emotional intelligence, but part of that is even, feeling the confidence or the self-regard. There's another kind of model of emotional intelligence, and one of the areas is self-perception. That impacts, like, how you feel about yourself impacts how you are showing up. For sure. Right? And if you don't recognize your strengths, you don't recognize the gifts, you don't recognize the value that you bring, it can be a barrier.
Yeah, I had a moment with a student the other day where I was walking across campus and they stopped me just to say hi. And I have a bad habit of always at least appearing like I'm in a hurry, right? And so they caught me. They said, you seem really busy. And whether I was or wasn't really didn't matter that much, right? It's the ability, can I recognize, okay, I recognize how I'm coming across, and I recognize that this student may need to chat. Can I? And that's kind of what you're talking about when it comes to some of these things, right? It's just that our ability to kind of recognize what we're bringing into the moment and how it's affecting others and what effect it has on them. But is there another way to think about an interaction like that? Because I think we all have those, right? Where we may be aware of our own biases, our own emotions. But can you help us to think about, like, what would be a more emotionally intelligent way to have those types of interaction where we're aware of the way that we're coming across, or at least we want to be, but maybe not thinking about the person we're interacting with? Does that make sense?
Right. I think sometimes it's the perception, right? Perception, how you come across. And one thing I talk about in all of my classes, my communication classes, my EQ classes, is to consider like dual perspective. Try to see things from another person's point of view, whether it's you and how you appear, on a day-to-day basis or in a situation, or how you reacted to a situation. But even if you happen to be working with someone who's difficult, try to see life through their eyes. You may not know all of their personal stuff. You may not know all of the background, but really dual perspective is an important part of emotional
Sure.
intelligence, to try to see things how they see it.
Yeah, because in that moment I was almost, I don't want to say offended, but I didn't want to come across that way, but it was almost like, well, how dare you? But when I could recognize, at least in part, that, well, I'm coming across this way to them and I need to take that into consideration. It was just kind of this moment of awareness of, okay, I need to be aware of how I'm, not only what I'm thinking, but how I'm coming across to this person that I'm talking to. It's kind of
Right.
what you're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
and in different situations, like a leadership perspective, there are things like a 360 feedback. If you've heard of that, it's kind of related to emotional intelligence. You certainly can do an EQ, a 360 EQ assessment, where people above you, your peers below you, how do they rate you or assess, in that. And sometime I had a friend who was the 360 feedback came that you always look mad and unapproachable, and they had no idea.
Mhm.
It's kind of like you walking
Yeah.
across campus, you had no idea. So it was a moment of self-awareness for that, like, oh, okay. And so he consciously had to make that adjustment
Mhm.
to look approachable to his direct reports.
Yeah.
And it's even something that I do before I go into class each time, is think about, like, whether it's, I have stuff on my mind, or whether, whatever. I want to think, how do I look? Meaning, how am I going to come across?
Right.
And you put a smile on your face,
Yeah.
right? It might be, something going on, but I try to put a smile on my face before you interact with people, because it's just part of self-awareness.
Sure. Yeah. You work with a lot of leaders, right? And obviously in the school of business here, and helping to shape future leaders. When it comes to the whole subject of leadership and management and emotional intelligence, are there some commonalities that you see in leaders who maybe lack emotional intelligence? What does that look like as far as their interactions with subordinates or employees or people that they work with? How does that show up of leaders who
They
are not emotionally
Right,
intelligent?
right. I mean, you think a leader needs to be aware of their people and aware how they come across, just like we're talking about. So the ones maybe without emotional intelligence are not going to treat their people very well.
Okay.
A lot. I was talking to my class earlier that there is a connection to people who are promoted to those leadership positions because they have people skills, because they have emotional intelligence. So there's even a financial, the studies show that people with high EQ make more money because they're promoted, because they're the ones who are going to be in that leadership role. So, I mean, of course, we've maybe have run across leaders that don't have high emotional intelligence, but statistics show the ones that are being promoted, particularly these days when this is such a hot topic. This is really important in the marketplace.
I know for just families and people today, Sandy, that we may have a family member or a friend who may not be as emotionally intelligent. They may not be as self-aware. So how would you coach them on if they interact with people in the workplace or family who's not as emotionally intelligent? I mean, can you give us just some advice, some tips to how to engage with them in a meaningful way?
Yes, I mean, as I was saying before, emotions are contagious. So, and the way your presence can also, I mean, you can bring a calmness, you can de-escalate something. I'm not saying it's a major issue or something, but you recognize that person may not be, may not have emotional intelligence, but then it comes to the empathy. You think, okay, well, maybe they've had a bad upbringing, or they've had a rough life. You don't know exactly what's happened before they've come to work, right? You don't know what they've experienced or what their background. So, I mean, not that that always makes it easier, but having that understanding, and this is when I get back to a genuine love for people. it's hard to love difficult people. I
Right.
mean,
Some
it
extra
can.
grace required, people.
Sometimes, yes, sometimes. But knowing what's your trigger, right? Knowing what sets you off, and sometimes if you can avoid people if it's something that you just can't work out.
Right.
I mean, I'm not suggesting you avoid. I
But
would
that's a part
suggest
of emotional intelligence.
really is.
Kind of knowing those parameters.
Right. It is. Yeah.
That's good. As I think about the optimism that there is in emotional intelligence, like when people can grow in maturity in that regard, it's kind of it's a good news sort of a thing, right? Like it almost makes the world a better place when we can become not only just self-aware but others aware. And it's something that kind of, I think, gives us a little bit of hope. Like if we can, especially while working with young adults, help them figure this out in their early years, it sets them up for a lifetime of success, I think, in the future as people, as even leaders of their own homes someday, leaders in the workplace. What gives you hope? Like if we get this right, if we get this emotional intelligence question right, and we help students figure this out, what gives you hope about the future as we send out servant leaders that are emotionally intelligent?
Well, it gives me hope that we're having this discussion, that they can take these classes, that they are even, it's brought to the realm of their knowledge, right? Whether they apply it directly or immediately, or it's part of a maturity process.
For sure.
They talk about older people are usually a little bit more emotionally intelligent. Not automatically. It doesn't just come with age,
Right.
right? It doesn't come with age. But the fact that we've had this discussion with them, that totally gives me hope. You see people, I've had students say, I started to get mad and then I recognized how I was feeling at the moment and how I was about to impact my behavior, or what I was about to do. And then I checked myself, kind of thing. So even if it's that, even if it's little stories, it gives me hope that they will go out from here knowing the gist of it, that it's loving people, loving others, right? That's we're sending them out with that foundational knowledge, and this is just a little piece of it.
That's good.
I love that. Well, Sandy, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today and for your continued investment in our students and in the next generation.